I haven't posted anything arcade related for a while. I haven't been doing much arcade related for a while, but I recently picked up a board set that I wanted to test, and that brought me back to my test rig that I had started working on but never finished. It was functional, but a couple things I wanted to improve on. So I thought I'd just show a little rundown of what I've got here. I've got some just Radio Shack cheap buttons here for service and test. Momentary push buttons. Over here I've got a power switch. Just a standard like computer power connector goes in here. These are DB15. These are Neo Geo pinout. Neo Geo controllers were too expensive. I never ended up getting Neo Geo controllers to use with this, so you could have the controller to control the game through those ports. So basically its functionality was limited to seeing the board run, and whatever you could do with service and test. You couldn't press any buttons. This hole, you probably won't be able to see it in there. There's the switching power supplies in there. I'll open the box up in a minute. That's so you can get in and adjust the 5 volts without lifting the lid. The other side has a hole. That's where the JAMA harness comes out. Forgot over here I threw in a PC fan. I scavenged off something. It's probably not needed, but I thought, well, while I'm doing this, I might as well throw it in there just so it gets some airflow. What I did today is put a speaker in and made some holes. So the speaker's mounted behind that Space Invader pattern holes there. Picked up on Thingiverse a 3D printable template that you just tape to whatever you want, and you drill holes through the template that's already got small holes in it, and you can make that design. Of course, being a 3D object, you can increase its height and width and make the holes bigger or smaller. I just printed off the default size, used a very small drill bit to make all the holes initially, and then went over with a slightly larger drill bit to increase the holes, to make sure enough sound gets out. There's also, again, there's the hole on the side. The JAMA connector comes out, and the hole on the other side for adjusting the 5 volts. So I think I'll get enough sound out of that. Now, before mounting the speaker in there, which again, I'll open this up in a minute, I had external wires going to this. Just a speaker I had from whatever, probably arcade related project, in my parts box. And so I have an external wire that goes to a monitor, arcade monitor, and another one that went out to the speaker. What I wanted to do is get this whole thing self-contained and not have bits of it hanging out outside. So that's why I've been meaning to add an internal speaker, but hadn't got around to it because I haven't done anything arcade related. So here's the inside of this. I got this box from Hobby Lobby, just a cheap wooden box. I made an insert that goes the same, actually it's a L shape right here, so that I could screw all this stuff to it. And then partition off for the JAMA connector storage. I had the speaker in here and controllers, which is the other thing I did yesterday, finally, after years. I made some controllers. So this goes outside of the box. Controller comes outside of the box. JAMA harness comes outside of the box. There's the speaker I just mounted. These are mirror clips. They originally had a piece on the bottom that came out and up so that a mirror would slide into it. I cut that off with tin snips and just used a screw, and then used this slot so I can adjust to make sure it's holding this speaker that I got out of some other project, possibly a Merit Megatouch touchscreen bar, you know, trivia and game machine. That might be where that came from. Really not, can't remember. But between these two pins, this thing is in there solid. It's not gonna rattle loose. But if I need to remove it, service it, or anything, all I have to do is undo the two screws, just really loosen them up, and then it'll pull out. It's got two wires that go to a connector that matches the external connector I made here that I was running to this speaker. So yet to do is take these two wires that go along with the video wires down here, and instead of having them come up this way, I'm going to have them come out to here, out of this hole. So I'll be just cutting the wires shorter, passing the wire back through this way, crimping a new connector on the end, and it'll connect up right there. So internal speaker, you won't have to worry about pulling out the speaker and connecting it and whatever. It'll just have one built in. What else we have in here? It's kind of a mess. This is, and if I turned it around, it looks, yeah, it doesn't look much better on the outside than it does the inside. This is basically holes because I've got a fan blowing air in. Or is the fan blowing the air out? I can't even remember. Whatever. I decided to have some vents, so it's not just air going into a closed box with just like this hole for the air to come in or out of. So just to make more breathability, put those vent holes in. This is the power switch. It goes, there's the line filter that has the computer style plug on the other end of it. So we've got that, we've got a fuse, and we go to the power switch. This is an isolation transformer. And this is the plug for it. So not only does this test JAMA arcade boards, it'll also test an arcade monitor. I have an extension cable for this that goes into this left-hand side if you want to use it. If not, just leave it disconnected. And then we've got the power supply, spare power supply I had lying around. And again, that is the control to alter the 5 volts if your board's drawing more or less current. And you can get through it through that hole with a screwdriver to adjust the voltage. And then the power wires go to the JAMA harness and the fan. And then these are those DB15 connectors that are both wired, so you can plug a Neo Geo controller into it and it would work. They also go to the JAMA harness. So there we go. You can close it, you can latch it. The video and audio cables come out, although the audio cable will be routed inside as soon as I get that done. JAMA connector comes up here. I got these online and then I made some once I saw how easy they are to make. This is simply a little LED voltage indicator that's hooked up to the 5 volt and ground. So when you turn the power on with the board connected, this shows you the voltage at this connector. It's not as good as checking the voltage at the actual chips on your motherboard, but it will give you an idea if you are within range to make sure that you're not extremely underpowering or overpowering your board when you're testing it. I just kind of use some zip ties to keep it from coming loose from the JAMA harness. I believe this is a Bob Roberts Yep, it even says the real Bob Roberts on it. I started this project quite a while ago, and I have been using it, like I said, just with no controller and no speaker, or an external speaker. So you put your board on top of here. It's not going to short out because this is wood. It's not conductive. And then we get to this KLOV website. There was a guy on there who was saying that he got some of these really cheap, and they are really cheap, like imitation Sega controllers. They're just sloppy, nasty, cheap piles of, yeah. But they work. They're hackable. So yesterday I hacked the controller to work with this setup. The problem I had before is I was using Microsoft Sidewinder controller, and boards were not seeing my inputs. And it was driving me nuts, and it turns out that it's because the way most controllers work, there's a silicone pad underneath all the buttons, and then under the actual center of the button there's a graphite pad. It comes down onto a circuit board, and it connects the traces on the circuit board, and that's what lets the controller know that you've pressed the button. Well, for some reason the Sidewinder controller, when you push the button and it makes the contacts, it's not enough for the board to see that you've done it. So I admittedly don't know enough about pull-up, pull-down resistors. I probably could have fixed that if I knew more of what I was doing. But in the end, I just kind of threw away the controller that I had been working on because I had tried a bunch of different things, and it was, by that point, pretty much a mess. But I saved the cable. And the cable is the same style cable as the ports I made, and wired to Neo Geo. So I took the cable that came with these Sega controllers, imitation Sega controllers, that had a 9-pin cable. I cut that cable, unsoldered the cable, and took it off. I put my 15-pin cable. I tested all the wires, and I ended up with a controller that has up, down, left, right, start. This is coin, and this is button 1, 2, 3. And then remember on the side I've got service and test. So that's enough to pretty much test the board. You're not going to have a lot of fun playing it because these controllers are just kind of sloppy and cheap, but that's not what this is. It's a test box to test to make sure things work. So I verified that all the buttons worked. I had down on the wrong wire, so I had to correct that. Other than that, everything was good the first time I tested it. So after I fixed that, put it back together, I've used a bunch of hot glue to keep this cable in, so the cable's not going to go anywhere unless you really yanked on it, which hopefully nobody will do. So now, yeah, once I route that speaker wire inside, you open the lid, you put that out, you put your controller in, you take your video, to your monitor. Right now I'm testing this with a 25-inch Wells Gardner standard resolution monitor. So this is the monitor pinout that I'm using. I made a little 6-pin connector here. So if I wanted to do a different connection style, I could make a different end piece for this. The one thing that would make this even better is to have no need to hook it up to an arcade monitor. I mean, it's got, like I said, it has a transformer, so you can power an arcade monitor with it to test by attaching an extension cable. It's got this extension cable for the video to an arcade monitor, but it'd be nice if by the time I'm done, you open it up, you hook up a JAMA board, you hook up a controller, and you're good to go with some external screen. So a friend of mine had bought one of, I think they're 7-inch, like a 7-inch LCD. A few years ago, they were on the KLOV website. They were fairly popular. A bunch of people bought them. I thought about it, but never got one. So he got it, hadn't been using it at all. So I've got it. I've got pinouts for it. I just haven't set it up yet. And so the only problem with it is I'm not sure. It's just an open frame LCD. What do I do with it? Do I attach it to the side of this? That would look kind of, it would be, you know, you could damage it easily, so I don't like that idea. Obviously I can't put it here because some PCBs are fairly large. So if there was maybe some way that it could fold down, or I could put it in here with the controller, pull it out and lock it in position like this or something, that might be an idea. I haven't really looked into that yet. But that would make it a really nice test box, because then, like I said, you just have the power cord coming out, you have the controller, you have the JAMA harness, you put your board on, you hook the monitor up to whatever, and then you can just test the game board. If you're going to test the monitor, you can take the monitor transformer power out, plus this cable will also still be inside, so that basically this cable is going to be, it's going to go to this for an arcade monitor, and then I'll also split it off to that LCD, so it'll be use one or the other. And that will probably be all I'll do to the test box. Right now I only have, I had bought 2 of these controllers. It's a pain in the neck to hack them. So I haven't decided if I'm going to do the second one. Plus I only have one of these cables, so I'd have to either buy another Sidewinder and cut the cable out if I wanted to make a match, or get a 15-pin D-sub connector there and just run all the wires zip tied together that go up to it. That's an idea. It would look, I don't really like that idea though. Because you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and ground. That's 10 wires that you'd be bundling into the controller, and that would just kind of look messy even if you did do zip ties or some kind of cable wrap. So, and again, if you're testing a JAMA board, you could just plug this into player 1 to test player 1, and I guess you could unplug it and then plug it into the player 2 port below to test player 2. They're both wired up the same. As far as this one's wired up to the JAMA harness for player 1 start and controls. This one's wired up as player 2 start and player 2 controls with the same pinout. So I can just move that back and forth between the two. And that's it. Just thought I'd show off some arcade stuff, since I haven't been doing that at all. I think this turned out really nice. I just finished it. I haven't actually tested it to see how much sound comes out. It's a fairly small speaker, but again, it's a test box. You're testing to see if your game board works and has sound, and you will be able to do that. So it doesn't have to be a giant, huge speaker like this one was, although this one did sound really nice. But again, it's a test rig. It's not a portable, it's not a super gun, which is what they call a setup that you can just take wherever, hook JAMA boards to, and usually they have joysticks and arcade buttons on them. So you can actually use it to play games, hooked up to your television with a video converter or something like that. This is an actual JAMA test rig to test JAMA arcade boards or other boards if you use an adapter, which is what I did. I bought first arcade PCB in quite a while. I got an Arkanoid board, and it uses a Tato pinout, not JAMA, so I wired up an adapter that goes from JAMA to the Tato board, and tested the board, and it actually works. It's got sound. I can start a game. It uses a spinner controller, so I have a header wired up for a spinner similar to this, but I'm waiting for replacement bushings for my spinner before I put it back together and test it out, because I don't want to put it all back together, test it out. Then the bushings arrive, take it all apart, and put the bushings in. But anyway, that's off topic. Main topic was my test rig has now got internal sound and working controls. So good job there. Really happy about that. And it really only took me about most of, well, not even most of yesterday, good part of yesterday, and a little bit of time this morning, drilling the holes for the speaker and mounting the speaker, and then cleaning up all my tools and everything. So I'm glad I finally got that part done.